Okay.
All right, Spring. This is something that I don't believe we will ever see again. Gabriel Landeskog coming back after 3 years of being gone from professional hockey. The last time we saw him play a professional hockey game was Game 6 of the 2022 Stanley Cup Final. There were times where we thought his career was over, that this night would never happen, and he got through it. Did he look like a world beater tonight? No. Did he have to? No. But he had consistent shifts, consistent energy. He got up to full speed a couple of times. He took bodies and physicality early on in this contest. He kills a penalty, almost scores a shorty. If that's the one game that you get to see before the playoffs, I think it's a big green check mark.
I completely agree. First of all, that was one of my favorite hockey games I've ever watched. We will never forget that game. If you watch that game tonight, it approached, I think I saw 20,000 viewers on YouTube. That was special, man. What a unique moment. What a unique game. I'm so glad that I was alive for this. I mean, that was just like, I'm a niche guy.
It
I'm a
is
hip
niche.
guy. Like, that hit my niche spot so well. Seeing Gabe Landeskog play for the Colorado Eagles. Shout out to the Eagles. I heard Kevin McGlue at the end of that broadcast say that that's the most win. This is now the most wins the Eagles have ever had in one of their seasons since joining the AHL, and Gabe Landeskog was a part of it. Okay, I mean, I tweeted out, man, just before this show started, and I was thinking it in the third period, and even after I thought it, I saw a couple more things that furthered my opinion. He's ready. Gabe Landeskog is ready to play in the playoffs. Now, was he a world beater tonight? Did he do a ton? Did he play in excess of minutes? And I'm trying to pull up a box score here to see what his time on ice was, if I can get that. I might not be able to. Perhaps I will. Either way, here's what I'll say, man. In the third period, the two moments that stood out to me late in this game, one, he's going off for a line change, and a puck is errantly cleared into the neutral zone down ice. It's going to be an icing. Gabe Landeskog contorts his body. I'm sure it would have been uncomfortable on a sore knee, and he touches that puck and prevents an icing at the red line. Two, I think this was his final shift of the game. TJ Tynan has a defensive zone faceoff, and he loses it. And I'm like, damn it, TJ, I want you to win every faceoff because I want Eagles puck possession, especially when Gabe Landeskog is out on the ice. I need to see Gabe Landeskog touch the puck and have offensive chances and offensive control with Gabe out there as much as possible, okay? Well, they lose the faceoff. There's a puck that is cleared down the ice. There's no icing. Gabe Landeskog is the first forechecker down. It was the most speed I saw from him all night. He
100%.
hounded his ass off on that forecheck. He executed the forecheck. The Eagles weren't able to corral that puck, but that was it. That was Gabe Landeskog right there. There were moments early and throughout the game, but my opinion was reaffirmed at the end of that game that at the very least, Gabe Landeskog can play 10 minutes a night, fourth line minutes a night, at the very least, if not third line minutes, on a possible line with Charlie Coyle and Ross Colton. Ross was in the building tonight. I saw enough, and I don't think that they wanted to overuse him. I think he was on some sort of a minutes restriction. They were playing it safe to a degree, but
Yes.
from what I saw, he looked like Gabe, and he looks ready.
The fact that he looked ready, I was expecting him to look like he was ready to play professional hockey. And again, I'm trying to find, as I look at my phone, I'm trying to find the box score to see time on ice, to see shift reports. I can't find it right now, but it was consistent. What I loved at the beginning of this is he brings himself into the fight early on in this game. You see a little bit of a scrum early on. I think it's hilarious that a referee calls him for hooking early in this one. Like that's something that when you're sitting around having a bunch of beers with your buddies and you're the AHL ref, you're 25 years into your refereeing career, whether it's been college hockey, American hockey, the East Coast League, something like that. He gets to tell that story for the rest of his life. Hey, when Gabe came back after 3 years, I called a penalty on him on his second shift. I loved how he got himself into the fight, the headlock that he puts that kid in. The referee screaming at Gabe Landeskog too. He just goes, let him go, Gabe, let him go. And Landeskog's literally looking at the referee, who I'm sure he's older than at this point, just laughing at the kid and going, all right, fine, he can go now. He can go back to the bench. He's the same guy. He's the same guy. And I agree with you. Can he give you third line minutes? I certainly think he can. Now, the step up to the National Hockey League is drastically different, and I think if a lot of people were watching their first American Hockey League game, you saw the stark differences in terms of like everyone comparatively in the National Hockey League as compared to the American League. Everyone's always in the correct position at all times comparatively. You didn't see that tonight. It was, it's a sloppy game. It's a little bit slower. It's not as crisp and as perfectly checked. It's going to be a big jump from him, Spring.
It is, and yeah, the speed. The players are not as fast as NHL players. Quick shout out. I'll say this right now. Nikita Prishapov, he has some speed. He scored the second goal, but his skating in the neutral zone, and we saw this kid get a stint early in the season. A little bit of a surprise. I understand why, especially watching him tonight, and he was impressive then. He's got some speed. There's another Eagles player that impressed me tonight, another prospect that I really like. We'll talk about him in a sec. So yeah, the speed wasn't. That's the AHL speed. It's different than NHL speed. There's no doubt about it. And before the explosive burst that I saw from Landeskog towards the end of this game, look, let's not forget that Gabe Landeskog he's not built on his speed per se, even though he was playing on an Avalanche team with a bevy of that trait, whether it be Nathan McKinnon or Cale Makar, a variety of other players who play with a lot of speed on the Avalanche. But Gabe is one of those position guys, IQ guys, very direct and I don't want to say plotting, but he's not a burner. He's more going to pick his position and pick his moments. That's who he's always been. And I saw a lot of that. Like, he wouldn't skate fast for the better part of tonight's game, but his strides were long, and he covers a lot of ice even with his long strides, despite his lack of true burst of speed. So I don't think much has changed, really, at least from what I saw, now that he comes back from the knee injury. And again, we're talking about fourth, maybe third line minutes. And the emotional boost it would give the Avs, I mean, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it if we're talking about Parker Kelly or Yoel Kiviranta. And look, both those guys have been admirable for the Avs this season. But I think it's worth it to cycle Gabe in. Maybe he doesn't play every game of the Dallas series. Maybe he's a healthy scratch one or two nights. We'll see how the knee responds itself. That's going to be a huge key. How does the knee feel after this game tonight? But beyond the speed and the burst, look, how about that wrist shot that he lays in the first period? That's an NHL wrist shot. That was the best shot of the game. Leaves the ice, top shelf. There are a lot of shots from these AHL players tonight that didn't get a lot of height on them. Gabe actually ripped one.
You're acting like they're U8 players who can't lift the puck off the ice.
Well, Oscar Olausen had one. He had one time look tonight, and he had a few of them, but it's probably his best look. And shout out to this Whitehead goaltender for the Henderson Silver Knights, Cameron Whitehead, I believe making his professional debut tonight. How about that? The Knights goaltender making his pro debut in a game in which Gabe Landeskog made his AHL debut. And he makes a nice save on Olausen, but that puck never left the ice. And it was a rather easy save because he can keep his pad ice level, but that's the AHL, right? Now, Landeskog, man, that little wrist shot that he flicked from the middle of the ice in the first period, that thing had some hum on it. It looked pure. I mean, he's an NHL player. It doesn't leave you. Even if it's a Zach Parise situation where he's a bottom six guy, I believe he still has it in him.
I still think he has it in him. Now, I see the questions from Anthony Pacino here on YouTube. He goes, third line minutes, but it's $7 million per year. Third and fourth line minutes, I think, are the only things that you can truly expect from him in the playoffs this year. Now, if it turns into third and fourth line minutes next year for 82 games, then that's a big sticking problem, right? That is a salary cap issue. But that's a bridge I think that the Avs and Chris McFarland end up crossing if in fact they get to it. This is still very much a work in progress. This is still very much an experiment to see if this guy can come back. What's nice is Gabe said his knee felt great after this game. Now the question is, what does it feel like tomorrow? I don't expect him to play tomorrow. I think that would be crazy. There's no way if I'm the Avs, I want him to play in back-to-back hockey games for the first time in 3 years on back-to-back nights. I don't want to send him to Tucson. I don't want to send him to California, which are the next 4 games that the Eagles have remaining in the season. I don't want to see him. I think this is the one time that you get to go play pro hockey, and then you throw him in on April 19th or 20th when the Avs go see Dallas in round 1. He gets to play in game 1 for that. It had to feel awesome. And what we spoke about in our last post-game show, Spring, it happened tonight. Nathan McKinnon, not on the team flight. Cale Makar, not on the team flight. Josh Manson, not on the team flight. Ross Colton, not on the team flight. And you know where they all were tonight? They were at Blue Arena in Loveland, Colorado. What an amazing feeling that has to be, not only for Gabe to see his boys, but everyone else to see him on the ice go up. You get to go watch an American Hockey League game. What are you doing that as an NHL superstar? That's insane. That it is so cool that all of those guys get scratched, don't go on the trip, and show up to watch a game.
Look, man, it's actually not that unprecedented. I'm a Metro State grad. I remember Kenneth Farid showing up to a Metro State Roadrunners basketball game. Some dudes just love the sport, but it goes beyond that with tonight. And look, I'm glad Nathan McKinnon did not play in the Vancouver Canucks game, and then naturally you would think he wouldn't play in Southern California either. And we've forecasted this for the better part of a week now, that you wouldn't play a lot of your key players in these 2 games in particular. Forget the Canucks game that we're talking about, a little before that, but these 2 season finale games that are pointless now that the Avs lost to the Canucks, that you wouldn't play some of these guys. And it just so happens that Gabe Landeskog is getting a conditioning assignment with the Eagles, his first professional hockey game in 3 years. And that's what you do. There's no need for McKinnon, Makar, Ross Colton, Devon Taves, and Josh Manson's been hurt. There's no need for any of them to go play in the NHL game. So what a better use of your time than to go support your captain, a guy that everybody respects, that his teammates have the utmost respect for. Gabe's father was also watching the game with those Avalanche players tonight. And I'm sure that in Southern California, most, if not all, of his Avs teammates were watching they were on YouTube. They were just a bunch of YouTube nerds like you and me tonight.
I never thought I was going to see it, Spring. I really didn't. When I threw on YouTube and I saw Mix 100.3's Big Rob bringing everyone through pregame, I didn't expect it to happen. I was waiting for, they're going to scratch him. His knee doesn't feel great. I was waiting for, he's going to play the first period and look like he's just out there on a Sunday skate twirling around to prove to himself or to prove to his kids that he could play professional hockey. I was waiting for the first time he went full speed for him to wince a little bit and then get off the ice. I was waiting for the first time that he felt some sort of physicality, a hit, a hard change of direction on that knee for him to be slower coming out of the turn rather than faster coming out of it and more powerful coming out of it. And none of that happened today. He's still a very long way from being back to the player that we saw him as of 3 years ago. But what a step forward for Gabriel Landeskog. This should feel amazing for him. Avs fans should be absolutely delighted. And now you can say you're pretty much out of the woods here. There is a pathway. You can see through it. And that next turn is game 1 of the playoffs. I thought he was done, man. I really did. I thought this was Carey Price 2.0. I thought the greatest thing that we were going to see out of him was lifting a Stanley Cup championship, and then we were never going to see him again. Much like when Carey Price was in the bubble and he backstopped a crappy Montreal Canadiens team all the way to the Cup final, and then we never saw him again. I was prepared for that.
I mean, I was prepared for the possibility, but I always envisioned what, especially the longer it went on, and therefore the more difficult of a road it became for Gabe Landeskog, how emotional it would be the night at Ball Arena where he took the ice once again. And part of me felt like, especially as time went on, that it was a little too good to be true, because that is a true fairy tale moment. I mean, one of the greatest fairy tale moments of all time. This is one of the greatest comeback stories of all time. Of all time. Now, what always gave me hope was, number one, it's Gabe Landeskog. Nobody is going to work harder and go through the due diligence and be able to accept the mental grind. And boy, was it a mental grind. How could it not be? I mean, Gabe has relayed a lot of that to us in his documentary and other interviews. If anyone could do it, it was him. To see Lonzo Ball come back from the same meniscus, tear, whatever, slight. I mean, that's just a brutal knee injury. So to see him come back, and now he didn't play a lot this year, but just to see him come back, that gave me hope. And then as far as tonight goes, day of, I didn't really have the concerns. And you want to know why? Ticket prices were like $2,000 on the open market. You can't bait and switch. You're in too deep. He had to play tonight. But look, man, the knee, I'm glad to hear that it's not bothering him after the game. We mentioned a handful of moments throughout the game that were encouraging. Here's another one. Now, he wasn't out there for the Eagles' first penalty kill of the night because he was in the box. He was in an AHL penalty box, that Gabe Landeskog, for hooking. But the second Eagles PK of the night, he was one of the first two forwards out there for the PK. And that, to me, is a good sign. Why would you put him out there on the PK? That's the most dangerous position you could put a forward in when they're rehabbing from a knee injury. It's an unnecessary spot. You do not have to play him on the PK. But they chose to play him on the PK. And he's always been that two-way forward. He will play. He has played on the PK and been a very effective penalty killer. Like him, Nichushkin, Lehkonen in the first cup run, great penalty killers. So the fact that they even put him out there on that PK is an encouraging sign to me. And then he damn near scored a shorthanded goal on that penalty kill.
Yeah, a little bit of a flub on the one-timer there. He misses it by essentially half of a puck. If he ends up catching it clean, it probably ends up in the back of the net. I still think the move was it was calculated. It was a little scary for me to see him on the PK, but knowing how they have to manufacture minutes for him in the playoffs, that's the way that you can manufacture minutes for Gabe Landeskog in the playoffs, is instead of playing a bunch 5-on-5, instead of playing a bunch in your own defensive zone, he might be a special teams specialist on this team. Net front on the power play, a second or a third unit on the PK. That's probably the way that Bednar is going to get those minutes for him. It scared me, but it was a good touch. It was nice to see it. You saw how he was on a pitch count tonight, right? Like every other shift, he would get skipped over in his line, and that was the case in the first period. It was the case in the second. It was the case in the third. But when they did not skip over him, they did not skip over him on power play, and they did not skip over him on penalty kill opportunities. That tells me that the organization had a plan. The AHL team enacted that plan, and that will be reflected in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the power play as well. First of all, just to see him net front, and when Raj, we all saw your video that you tweeted out at As Practice not too long ago of him practicing with power play one and occupying his net front position, and we saw it. We saw him net front on the power play tonight, and he looked good. Like he looked like a guy who can out physical guys in front, who can body guys up and move them. and he's playing with TJ Tynan on the left wing and Oscar Olausen on the right wing. Guess what? When you have Nathan McKinnon on that left wing and Drouin on that right wing, and Nature's floating and McKinnon floating, and you got Nichushkin maybe in the bumper. I would love to see, and I think Gabe Landeskog can play net front for the Avs on power play one in the playoffs. It's 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 just a matter of physicality in front of the net. He doesn't have to move around a lot. He just has to be physical. And we saw a couple times he narrowly missed a tip or two. The screen ability that he has in front of net, and now you get Nichushkin in that bumper where he's had a lot of good one-time looks in that bumper of late, and he's a big body who can kind of shield Landeskog a little bit too. I think special teams is. I think you're spot on for manufacturing minutes for him outside of him probably starting as a bottom six, and let's be honest, maybe even a fourth line player. Maybe even a fourth line player to start, but there is a way to get him involved on special teams.
Without a doubt. All right, Spring. I'm coming down to the bottom of my rope here out at Circus Sports in Las Vegas. Your final thoughts on tonight's American Hockey League game?
Yeah.
That BTP AHL version. I love it.
I just have one more thought, and it's a Colorado Eagles thought. It's an Avs prospect thought. Okay, I mentioned Nikita Prichapov. He was one of my two favorite Avs prospects in this game tonight. My other, and he didn't do a lot, but when I watched him skate, and I watched his size, and I watched the way that he would get a little dirty and physical, and also the way he moved as a skater. Again, he didn't do a lot, but I kept my eye on him tonight. Taylor McCarr. I tell you what, dude, there's a little craftiness, speed, and size to his game. He will be an Av at some point.
Wow.
And the Eagles are an interesting AHL playoff team. With a Prichapov, with an Ivan, with a Taylor McCarr. I see an NHL body. I see NHL traits from a Taylor McCarr. So everybody keep your eye on that. Taylor McCarr will make his NHL debut in the next year or two.
Well, that is, I will hold you to it. I hope it
All
happens.
right.
He's a bigger body. It'd be exciting to see him play alongside his brother. Maybe he gets some touches in preseason next year. My hope is that he doesn't get onto the roster next year because that means the Avs are completely healthy.
Sure. And look, it'll be, we've seen Tynan come up as a fourth line guy. Others come up, and that's what Taylor will.
Fellhaber, right? He would be that guy.
That's what Taylor will be.
You played 6 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, Spring. I'm out of here from Circa for Spring. I'm Raj. Thanks for joining us on an AHL version of Between the Pipes. We will talk to you guys tomorrow after the Avs take on the LA Kings. Right now, the Avs are heavy underdogs in that game. They're not going to be playing anyone. They're in LA against the NHL's very best home hockey team. LA is minus 200 on the money line. The Avs are plus 180 out here at the Circus Sportsbook. Actually just moved down to plus 178. They're heavy underdogs. I don't think they're going to find a way to get it done.
Well, they're the 3 seed no matter what. Hey, who knows? Maybe Scott Wedgwood has the game of his life. And he's had some damn good games this year, but maybe he has the game of his life.
All right, Spring, I'm out. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow after the Avs take on the Kings. But at long last, it's here. Gabriel Landeskog, after 3 years, returns to professional hockey. What a day.